I'm carrying on the watercolour theme, but just adding a few other ideas into it. So one idea is using line and wash, which in some ways, which you had a go at last week really, weren't you? Which is quite nice. In some ways it's quite nice because you haven't got to rely totally on the watercolour. And I brought various examples in. Just find something at random. So that, yeah, that'd be a kind of, that's my take on a line and wash really. I tend to draw with fine liner pens and then I use another pen to get the tones. Most people tend to use colour with line and wash, or a lot of people use colour, but I quite like to just use greys myself. I just visually prefer the look of that. So I thought I'd just talk a bit about that. So what I use the most is these are fine liner pens. So these are a waterproof pen. Just do a little bit of, yeah. You know, if I was going to have a go at something like this, you know, I can put these. Yeah, so once the line's down, that will dry, and I could put more paint over the top of that, and that will stay put. It's not going to run or bleed. So that's waterproof pens, and I use those. Most of my sketches, I use these are brush pens. So these are called Tombow brush pens. So I'll do a little bit of line work, wherever it might be. And then these are just a nice quick way of popping some tones in. Very quickly just pop some tone like that. For me it's a lot quicker than the pencil, and I use 3 greys, so there's that one, slightly darker one, and this one is virtually black. These are water soluble, so I can slightly merge them into each other if I want. So I could just kind of blend them a little bit, like using the light one and just blend it into the dark. Or just use a bit of water. This is like a water brush. So I can just sort of kind of soften them out a little bit if I want to. But to be honest, I don't tend to use that very much for these. I tend to just use pens. So that's line and wash. But equally, you could do the same with watercolour, just pen lines and watercolour. A couple of other pens you could use. I've got a friend who does quite a lot of drawing with, well, she uses a fountain pen. So these sort of rollerball pens would do the same. But the thing with this is this ink will bleed. So we can put some more buildings in like that. And then just go with some water. That will, you know, that'll soften out, that will run. So in some ways you could, if you wanted to, you could do a very quick kind of wash drawing just with a pen and a bit of water. But that will have a different quality. If you drew it all out carefully and then put some watercolour on, that's going to dissolve quite a bit. But you might like that effect, some people quite like that effect. The other things you can, I've seen people kind of then draw into it a little bit, which is possible. So that's kind of water, not waterproof pen. These are like a spirit-based permanent markers. So this particular one is, you know, I could use it. This might be quite good for sketching, and I could add some colour as well. The only thing with these is that it will come through to the other side, so you just have to be aware of that. Put a bit of scrap behind you if you want to use those. And the lines will sort of bleed in. If I start like that, the ink will start running, and you get these sort of dots. But I have, again, I've come across people who quite enjoy using these. I've had a go myself. Don't find them that easy to use, but that is another option. And again, that's waterproof, so you could pop some paint up the top. That's going to stay put. So they're all quite nice mediums you could use for sketching. So that's, and the other one which I haven't brought in is like using bottles of liquid ink and dipper pens, which is good fun, but can get very, very messy. And that, you can get waterproof or water-soluble inks with those, so it can be either of those. Can be quite effective, but that might be good for another time. So yeah, if anybody wants to try any of those, we've got these here. What else? So with that sort of drawing, I've done it on the brown paper, and I've just added little bits of white pastel pencil. So I quite like using the brown paper sometimes and just picking out highlights, so that can work quite well.
It was great. Medium.
The other thing that, so this is what they call using watercolour, but more like, it's called gouache, or body paint. So it's basically using watercolour but adding white to it. And again, I quite like using the brown paper, and this one I was quite pleased with. This was a sketch I did during lockdown when we had a Zoom meeting. That's a Zoom meeting I did live of my sketching pals that we used to go out sketching, but we couldn't meet up during lockdown. So we did that as a Zoom kind of thing, just sketched each other on Zoom. That's watercolour. And the nice thing about that, I'll do a little bit of that on here. So this is one I started this morning. So whereas with traditional watercolours, I'll quite carefully draw everything out. I find this is quite nice because I can not have to be quite so precious as I would with white paper. I could draw a bit like I would with oil paint. I could kind of draw out with the paint itself. Go to a bigger brush. And so it is a nice, quick way of getting colour down in a sketchy way, in a sketchbook, that sort of thing. It's a long time since I've used it on trying to make a painting out of it, but it's been really nice as a sketching medium. And some of this I've used just the transparent watercolour paint. These bits here I've added a little bit of white in. So let's just add a bit more white. That started to dry up from this morning, that's not too bad. So yeah, any sort of highlights, pop some bits here and there, perhaps a little bit of light here. So again, it's a way, it's nice having the dark tone and then the lights really pop out. If I wanted to paint the sky, and perhaps I would add a little bit of blue to it. Just a tiny bit in there. But yeah, I can quite quickly pop that in. It does come out. It gives it a slightly chalky, slightly flat feel compared to something like oil paints. But yeah, very nice, quick way of painting with colour. And the nice thing about this is, like I say, I'm not too precious about it. If I wanted to wash areas out, lift bits out, to an extent I can just rehydrate that and just block that. And then if I wanted to put, say, a different colour, I could paint over that, and it would still look fine. Whereas with watercolour, it's going to start to look a bit overworked if I start doing too much of that. So for me, that's quite a nice, quick, sketchy medium.
Gouache is like in between oil and watercolour in that way.
In some ways, yeah.
I didn't realise that.
So whereas with acrylics, that would dry, as soon as it hit the paper, and you'll be able to adjust it. You can with it because it's watercolour effectively. You can rehydrate areas. And yeah, your palette, you could have sort of water. It's really, you can buy gouache paints, but I just use watercolours these days and just add a little bit of white paint with it. Just because I've got lots of watercolours around and I don't want too many. Got a lot of kinds of paint already.
Paul, when you say you add a little bit of white paint,
yeah.
What sort of white paint?
So this is, it is a form of white watercolour. It's called,
White watercolour.
It is gouache. It's called gouache.
It's called gouache.
Which just means it's more opaque than, I think the whites you get in watercolour will be a little bit more transparent. Whereas this will be a bit more opaque. But if you've got white watercolour, that would do fine. Yeah, it's just different approach. I'll just bring a book in on, this Turner. So Turner, because last project we're looking at the Masters, so something like that is a little Turner watercolour. And he's used blue paper, so he's kind of used blue paper and then painted some of these lights in. And this would be probably transparent paint, but then other bits he's had a little bit of opaque paint. A lot of watercolourists are very pure, it's got to be pure watercolour, no white paint, but actually Turner, lots of his paintings were on this kind of slightly toned paper, and then he painted a lot of transparent colour, but then a few bits of white in. So really, whatever suits whatever you're doing, really.
It's nice that.
So that's quite a nice example. There's a few, it's hard to pick them out. I think that to me, like, I don't know if it says it's a watercolour, but that looks like a watercolour to me. It very much looks like there's bits of white mixed in with the other colours. So I thought that's quite interesting. So yeah, so a few different takes on it. A bit more forgiving than what I've been trying to do so far. I was thinking next week we'd do a little bit on sketchbooks, so if you've got sketchbooks, bring them in, and I'll just talk a bit about sketchbooks in general and keep the sketchbooks. We could even, if you want, do a bit of sketching outdoors next week. Just go out for an hour or so, or half an hour. So fancy that, and just do a little bit outdoors. See what the weather's like. Having said that, it probably falls down, but yeah, we could just do a little bit around here. It might be good. And I'll also revise colour mixing. So I think I did that last year, but did some colour mixing. But I'll do a little bit on the basic colour wheel and mixing colours. So that's the plan for next week.
Excellent.
Becky? Okay.
Cool.